So we're going to have a panel focused on what this means for Ghana. And moderating this panel is a distinguished trade diplomat who directly facilitates UK commercial engagement with Ghana as the country director for the Department of Business and Trade. Please welcome Joanne Sackey. She will introduce her panel.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for the warm introduction. Let's give our MC a round of applause. Trust me, we have put him through a lot, and he's not given up on us yet. So shall we welcome to the stage the best panel to have this discussion. First, I'd like to introduce Dr. David Ofosu-Dorte, Senior Partner, AB and David. I'd also like to introduce Valerie Labi, co-founder, Wahu Mobility. Ed Stephenson, co-founder, Rainforest Builder. And Mark Hogg, CEO of Plantations. Let's give them a round of applause as they come on stage.
That's it.
A lot has been said already about the opportunities that exist in forestry, in carbon markets. And I would like to go straight into the questions. So for each of our panelists, please briefly introduce yourself and tell us something about your organization and why this conversation is very important to you. I'd like to start from my right. So Mark, would you like to begin?
Thank you. I get to make the mistakes first. My name is Mark Hogg. I'm the founding chief exec of Plantations. Plantations are a reforestation company. We operate on a very different model to everybody else. We're purely commercial. We don't have any external funding from aid agencies, government agencies. This is purely standalone business. We have to date planted about 9 million trees. We have in the ground in existence about 6 million trees. Some of them die. We have 2 expat workers in Ghana. Everybody else is Ghanaian. And the 2 workers are there busy doing training programs to give back and bring on the youth to MVQ level 4 international standard. That's really important to us.
Ed, would you?
Ed Stephenson, co-founder, co-CEO of Rainforest Builder. We're a tropical forest restoration company operating across West Africa, so in Ghana, Sierra Leone, and Guinea. We employ about 1,000 people at our 2 projects in Ghana, so one based in Bibiani and one based in Dambai in the OT region that was announced by the president this morning. We supply carbon removals to blue chip companies around the world, so people like Microsoft, people like BNP Paribas. And we are part of a new wave, I suppose, of carbon removals companies that's come up over the last couple of years in order to deliver really high quality, high ESG standard carbon removals to companies who are very discerning on these topics. And we think that Ghana is an ideal place to do that.
Awesome. Valerie.
Brilliant. Can I hear you say Wahu?
Wahu.
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 So Wahu means horse in Dagbani, but it can also be the energy that you feel when you ride my electric smart e-bikes through the streets of Accra. So we design and manufacture both hardware and software to make the transition to electric mobility easy and affordable for delivery riders. And we are also the first EV company in Africa to sign an Article 6 carbon market, compliance market agreement and get it authorized. We're also the second in the world. Thank you.
Awesome. David, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, they are the real producers. But somebody needs to guide them and somebody needs to advise them. So I'm from AB and David Africa, founded in Ghana, but with offices in Zambia, Zimbabwe, Uganda, Kenya, Mauritius, and we recently set up in Singapore. So we are a global business law firm, founded in Ghana, but focused entirely on Africa. 3 years ago, we set up what we call the Green Transition, Carbon Markets and Sustainability Practice, because this sector is growing. And once money comes into climate, everything changes. Yeah. So we've been advising across the sector, cutting across those who are trying to develop private sector afforestation projects, trying to raise financing for sustainability projects, trying to sell carbon credits, trying to take advantage of some of the agreements Ghana has signed, particularly with Singapore, Sweden, Switzerland, for that matter, and trying to guide them to do projects and find carbon assets across the sectors, coming from producing, for example, ethanol from sorghum, trying to produce char as a way of helping in the construction industry to create carbon credits and trade this in the long run. So we facilitate making these things get done.
Awesome. Thank you very much. We've talked about how forestry is a viable investment option. So Ed, tell us, how do you make sustainable forestry a commercially viable asset class that delivers both financial returns and ESG impact?
Thanks for the question. So what we do is quite a new kind of business. It's only been possible because of the carbon markets over the last few years really coming to fruition. We are focused exclusively on building the natural capital assets of forests that should be across the landscape were they not degraded and deforested. What that means is that we are extremely long-term in our approach. We don't have the luxury of having one successful year, 5 successful years. We're planning on a 100-year basis, and one bad year could set us back 10 years. So therefore, it's really important to us that we have stability, predictability, good rule of law, and we can plan ahead, and we have a supportive regime in which to do that. So it's been really important to us to have the support of the Forestry Commission, work closely with them. The Ghana Carbon Market Office and the Ghana Carbon Framework has been really world-leading. I've lost count of the number of times I've heard that other people are following it and how great it is. And the Free Zone Authority as well, and having free zone status is important to us as well. So all of those, when we're thinking about building a new asset class, something that people are not used to investing in, all of those really contribute to for us to be able to sell that to investors and ultimately to market carbon removals at an affordable price. And then, last of all, of course, the fiscal terms that we need to operate under need to be economic, so that we have that both predictability and also price competitiveness in what is a competitive global market. So forestry is, as agriculture is, an unpredictable business sometimes, but with the support of a predictable framework and a government that is keen to encourage investment and is pragmatic and listens to business, we're really well placed to be able to do that.
Awesome. Mark, my question to you is this. What financing models, such as green bonds or listed funds, are most effective in scaling investment into Ghana's forestry sector? Because I'm sure there are some investors here who would be interested. Let's see who would fall in that category.
Okay, it's a big subject. It's a massively complex subject because one thing about forestry, it is incredibly long-term. It's slow. We make watching paint dry look like a spectator sport. But when you get it right, then there are many, many ways, many options to finance it. I think the first thing I need to mention is no financial institution should be asked to finance something unless there is a clear plan, a clear exit, a clear income stream, and a clear back end. We're the same as any other business. Now, one thing I haven't heard mentioned today, and I've been here for most sessions, is FLECT. Ghana are the first country in Africa and only the second country in the world to have a FLECT license. What does that mean? That means that I, as a producer, have a green light to sell my timber or my carbon credit or any other forest-derived product anywhere in the world into Europe, unimpeded, and at the end of the day, when we export our logs, because we grow them in Ghana and we prove sustainability plus minus 1 meter, our customs clearance normally takes place before the ship even docks. Now that's amazing. So well done, Ghana. I mean, really well done, Ghana. Now, to come back to the question, if you have a solid product, a solid commodity, a solid, valuable commodity that people want to buy. We grow teak. Teak is highly desirable, but the vast majority from Ghana goes to the Indian market. And in the Indian market, the price is very, very low. So we've been developing markets. We export to Britain, Australia, America, Europe. We're just talking about starting to go to China. But these are huge markets that pay big money for teak. Ghana, God gave you the perfect climate to grow timber. In fact, He gave you the perfect climate to grow just about anything. So we grow timber, our MAIs, our volume, our size of trees are way bigger than countries doing the same thing. Way bigger, that's more material, it's more biomass, it's more carbon credits, simple as that. And that gives us a very, very good quality log to come to market earlier, to come to market in a controlled, sensible fashion. So that's opened up a huge amount of funding options to us. Tomorrow, we launch our first AIF, Alternative Investment Fund, on the London Stock Exchange. Now, this is huge. It's a little bit nerve-wracking, but it's absolutely huge. That is the first of 10, possibly more. We've got some really exciting people that we're partnering with that we're going to be able to announce in the next couple of years. But the big thing for us is whole usage of the tree, and that is a big thing for the financier as well, because then they're able to generate money and generate repayment and return from every single aspect of what we do. So later on this year, it may run to next year, depending on delivery times of machines, we're going to introduce Africa's largest biochar production facility. That's hugely exciting because that opens up more finance streams, not just for us, but for the whole marketplace.
Awesome. Let's give our panelists a round of applause. We are now moving the discussion from forestry to e-mobility. So I'll come to you, Valerie. Your journey has been very, very inspiring. So I want to know, from your point of view, what's the role that local innovation and startups play in driving scalable, investment-ready climate solutions?
Yeah, so I think we've spoken a lot over the last few days of the gap for financing SMEs. It's difficult for SMEs to access bank finance. You need 120% collateral before you can borrow from a traditional commercial bank. Then when you're moving to funding startups, the VC ecosystem is really looking more at asset-light businesses. So then again, there is a gap financing CapEx-intensive manufacturing industries. So where the carbon markets has really stepped in for us is supporting us to be able to finance innovation, and also be able to finance innovation so it can get to grassroots individuals. If one of my delivery riders tried to get a loan to buy an electric vehicle, everyone would say he's not bankable. And so for us, we really looked at how could we use innovation, carbon markets, to be able to also drive social value. So we started to be able to track the carbon avoided by one of our e-bikes, because the e-bikes doesn't use petrol. And with the support of the Ghana Carbon Market Office, we were able to broker an arrangement with the government of Switzerland for them to actually buy the carbon avoided. So as the riders ride in Accra, we now have a revenue stream that almost forms a collateral to be able to bank these delivery riders.
I was enjoying it too much. All right, David, anyone who wants to come into Ghana, invest in our forests, invest in e-opportunities, green opportunities, needs to understand the regulation, they need to understand the market, and that's where you come in. So I'd like to know, from your point of view, what makes Ghana's legal and regulatory framework particularly attractive and for green investment and carbon market participation?
Okay, let me put it this way. Because I advise businesses, so let me look at it from the business perspective. Any business person wants to make money.
Yeah.
It's that simple. So is there money in carbon? Are there assets in carbon that they can make money from? The answer is yes. To do that, is the asset I'm investing in legal? So in other words, is there a legal framework for it? The answer is yes. And Ghana did something that many countries have not done. We amended our old Act 490, the Environmental Protection Act, and created a carbon office and a carbon registry.
Yeah.
That was the beginning of it. And the two made it easy for carbon assets to be identified and become tradable.
Yeah.
Then a couple of other wonderful things happened. One is Bank of Ghana, the governor is here. Bank of Ghana have created a guideline that requires financial institutions in Ghana to take carbon assets into account and ESG principles in giving financing. So that framework exists. Then you had the Ghana Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, also creating the green financing guidelines. Then the Ghana Stock Exchange have also created their guidelines. So you have this network of framework of legal regime, which all exist. I think the most important thing that happened in the legal regime in Ghana actually came from Ministry of Finance, the green taxonomy.
Yeah.
And that taxonomy created a situation where all these various sectors I've talked about are using the same nomenclature in terms of carbon assets. That, to the best of my knowledge, I haven't found in many, many countries. Definitely not in anywhere in Africa. So we clearly stand out when it comes to that. Again, one of the things that and I believe, and I'm coming from particularly where Valerie is talking about, because a lot of the assets being produced which become investable are being originated from SMEs who need financing.
Yeah.
And we work on a lot of financing products. And you will find that we have to translate the Bank of Ghana requirements to factor green into lending into the situation where that will affect and make financing for green projects more attractive in terms of the cost of capital. But the framework is there. So at least once you want to bring money into the market as well, that framework is there. And I think no other country that I know in Africa has this kind of regime harmonized.
Fantastic. Can we give Ghana a round of applause? I'm not sure you've noticed, but I'm trying to be the fastest panel so far. So my last question to each of the panelists. We know that the framework is there. So this question is not targeted at what government can do next. This question is, what is the one bold action that could unlock the next wave of large-scale green investment in Ghana? Mark,
Great.
30 seconds.
Thanks.
30 seconds.
For me, growing the timber is the process from it leaving the plantation gate, somehow bringing the haulage costs in line with other countries, getting it to the port, getting it through the port, and getting it overseas.
Thank you very much. Ed, one bold action.
So I was in Brazil earlier this year, and a lot of us in the carbon space look at Brazil with a lot of envy and admiration. They've really led the way when it comes to forest restoration in particular. And one thing that Brazil has done is that they have a development bank that actively supports the restoration space. They actually use a royalty from the oil and gas space, and that directly funds forest restoration projects. I think it was mentioned that the cost of capital remains a pretty big piece of the overall picture for us. While I have huge amounts of appetite from investors to invest in our projects in Ghana, that is at a pretty high cost. If there was something that we could do, whether by way of guarantee, whether by way of greater capital availability through DFI mechanisms, etc., that directly supported and reduced the cost of capital into forest restoration, I think that would be an absolute game changer.
Awesome. Thank you. Valerie?
Brilliant. So I have two quick things. So
Hey,
one
madam.
thing that I would like to see happen is a harmonization between the Ghana Carbon Market Office and also free zones, so that we start looking at carbon as an export that would allow you to qualify for your 70% export by getting the vehicles on the ground in Ghana. I think it's a gap in regulation. And then one thing that I'm excited about, because as a startup, everything for us is around scale. How do we scale it up? And we have been able to get support now from government. Just today, I managed to sign an agreement with the District Assembly Common Fund to be able to roll out e-bikes across the country. So I think that's wonderful to get that support. Thank you.
Wonderful. David?
So I was going to say two, but Valerie has touched on one, so I will narrow it to one. I think the Carbon Market Fund in the next budget, I will recommend a population of that fund, with a special amount being set aside to leverage lending to local entities which are actually trying to create carbon assets. Because I'm sure you've heard from a lot of panelists previously in the sessions since yesterday that one of the things that we lack is projects well prepared for funding. So the problem is not lack of funding, it's projects well prepared. So we need to create that funding that enable locals who are creating these projects to fund it. And I think the carbon market fund has already been created in the law. Put in funds, leverage it, and also Bank of Ghana should, quote and unquote, get the banks to give special cost when it comes to lending to these carbon assets. Because one of the things we must realize, it can bring in a lot of foreign exchange. There's a project I'm advising on. The minimum foreign exchange that can attract is about $350 million in a year. So we should not underrate the potential.
Definitely, do not underrate the potential. Ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of our panel. A lot has been said, and what I'll say is that the last century was built on extracting value from natural resources. The next century will be built on restoring them and monetizing them sustainably. A round of applause for my panelists. Thank you very much.
Yeah.